Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at application questions, but we're going to set the diagram up using bearings. So bearings, we have a couple of ways we can say a bearing. So if we look here, the first one it's talking about is a true bearing. So a true bearing is measured clockwise. Oh, sorry. It just blanked out. So a true bearing is measured clockwise from north. So what that means is you always go from north to the line, and it would be that in there. So if you look, if they're saying this one in here is 62, you know that that's a right angle triangle, which is 90 degrees. So how much would that green one be? 90 minus 62, which is 28. That's right. So in here, that's 28 degrees. But a true bearing is also known as a three-figure bearing. So for me to write this as a true bearing, I would have to write 0 to 8 degrees. So that is the true bearing. So you start at north and you go around. So say for this one, I'd start at north and go all the way around that way. Now, if you get from north to south, how many degrees is that? 180. Yeah, good. And then they're saying in here is 60. So how much would 30. This one? 30. So I'm going to add another 30. So what would the true bearing be? 10. Yeah, it's going to be the 30 plus the 180, which equals 210. So that's already 3 digits, so that's okay to look at like that. So that's a true bearing. That's what it said. You start from north and you go clockwise. So clockwise, like the clock hands turn around. All right, so that's how true bearings. And then I think that's all we're going to use is true bearings. Well, at the moment we are. So let's have a look. So we've got a group of bushwalkers leave point P. Now, I'm going to show you with this how I would want you to do it. It's always best with these things, sometimes drawing your own diagram, and because it'll make it easier. So when you're doing bearing questions, you always have a starting point. So what I suggest you do is you draw a light little compass. So what I draw, I get my grey lead, so it's good to have grey lead for this one. And I draw this faint little compass, and then I've got a dot there, and there's my starting point, which they're calling start P. So I'll put P there. Okay, then it said they leave it and they run, they leave point P. The bushwalkers leave point B, which is on a road that runs north and south, and they walk 30 kilometres on a bearing of 20 degrees true to Q. So let's go think about our, first about this bearing. So it's a true bearing. So you leave from north and you go out 20 degrees. So that means they've gone out like that. Yeah, and so you know that's 20 degrees in there. And they walked for 30 kilometres. So if you look here, they said they walked for 30 kilometres. So 30 kilometres, that green line is. And they got to point Q, whatever. There's Q. Okay, now, what is the shortest distance, and they want you to call it X, from Q back to the road? So what they said was they started on this point, and I'll just highlight it. So they said this point on a road that runs north and south. So they're meaning this, yeah? So do you think that the quickest way back to that road would be to go that way? Yeah. So there's the X. So that's the X they're talking about. Once you've sort of got what's happening, then just tidy it up. So I can see a triangle like that. I can see that that's X. I've now created a right angle triangle doing that, and I know that this is the 30 kilometers, and I know this is 20 degrees. So now I'll just go about answering this normally. So I've got opposite and I've got hypotenuse. So what one would I use? Yeah. So A. So we've got sine angle equals O over H. Sine 20 equals X over 30. Do that in your calculator. We're going to do solve. So let's have a go. So menu 3, 1. Sine 20, close the brackets, equals, control divide to get that fraction template, X over 30, move it over, comma, X, press enter. So I didn't highlight though. What did it say? Correct to, I think, 1 decimal place. Let's practice highlighting that. Okay, so 1 decimal place, checking back on my calculator, it would be 10.3. Excellent. So 10.3 kilometers, because we were measuring in kilometers. Okay, I can leave it as X because they called it X, yeah, in the question. I'm just going to add solve in there in case you go back to this and you go, what did we do? How did we get that? So looking from point Q, so now I'll use the diagram that they've done. So they're over here. They said looking from point Q, what would be the 3 bearing of their starting point? So they want the true bearing back from Q. When you see this, the from bit, that means that's where you need to be and you need to draw your compass. So I'm drawing my compass up there. And remember, true bearing is from the north all the way around. Okay. So if you know, so what we're going to do now, would you agree if this was a north line here, and that's a north line there, would you say they're parallel lines? Yeah. So they're parallel lines. Do you remember, you would have learned this last year, when you have a line in between there, if that's 20, do you agree with when I say that means this is 20? Yeah. Yes? Remember that rule? Yeah? So that's what we're going to have to draw on. So the rule where you say so these are parallel lines. If you say that's 20, the other side is 20. So we know that. So therefore, what's our true bearing here? No, we're going to go from here all the way to north plus 20. So what would that be? Yeah, so we're going to go 180. So what would the true bearing be? 200. So it's 180 plus the 20. So we get 200 degrees true. You don't have to write the T, but you do need 3 digits, 200. So it says a ship left port and sailed east for 5 kilometers. So what you want to do, you always got to don't start too close up. Give yourself a fair bit of paper. So I'm going to start here. And so it left a port. So I start with my little compass. And I'm calling this port. Now, I get a thing. It said it sailed east for 5 kilometers. So east is along this line. So I'll draw a solid line. And I know that is 5 kilometers. Once you're stopped, once you've done a direction, you stop again. So you stop and you go, here's the ship. And we've done that instruction. So then we draw another compass so that you can see. It's mainly so you can see those north lines and things like that. So once it's done that, it then sailed north for some time. So I'll change the color, and it then went up north for some time. Okay, so off it went up that way. And so after some time, an observer at the port, so it got to here. So we'll just say this is where the ship is now. And I'll just draw just a light one, just so I can see what's happening. So it said an observer at the port. So go back to the port down here. So here's a little man, our observer, could see the ship on a bearing of 150. So he's here, he's looking up there, and he could see on a bearing of 50. So remember, the bearings go from his north to there. So we know that's 50 degrees. Now, you can also see that this is right angled. And isn't this, if I draw these, if I highlight our north lines again, okay, so if we highlight our north lines, and can you see there's a line in between? So would you agree, if this is 50, can I say here's 50? Yeah, and that's what I'm going to do. Because it's asking me for question A. So once we've got the diagram, it said, how far north has it travelled? So they want, I'll just call it N. They want that north bit there. So that would be how far north has the ship travelled. So this line along the north line. So what I'll do is I just simplify it. I don't want all those lines in there anymore. I'm going to say I've got 50 degrees there. I know this is 5 kilometres and I want to find that north. So if I label this up, I've got the opposite and I've got adjacent. So which formula will I use? Tan. Good. And I'll just highlight that it said 1 decimal place this time. Okay, so tan 50 equals opposite. Sorry, I probably should have written the rule there. 5 over n. So we can do solve. And we'll find out what n equals. So menu 3, 1. Solve. Tan 50 equals, what was it? 5 over n. Comma n. So it said 1 decimal place. So what would that one be, boys? 4.2. So, and what units was it measured in?
Kilometers.
Yeah, 4.2 kilometers. So you probably should write, it says how far north. Let's just say 4.2 kilometers north. We'll answer the question what they said. All right, then B, it said looking from the ship. So when we say this, from the ship, so you're from here, yeah? And what would be the 3-figure port bearing? So from the ship, so you start here from its north, and you could go all the way around to there. Yeah, so why is it 230?
Because it's 90, then 180, then it's add another 50.
Yeah, so 180 plus the 50, yeah? So the true bearing is the 180 degrees plus that extra 50. So we get 230 degrees true. Okay, so that's the most you're going to get this year.